Hello and welcome to ACS Golf and this week's review. Now, this week we're looking at a club that's actually been in my bag for a while. If you watched my last What's in the Bag for basically spring and summer for this year, so 2023, you would already known about this club, and it is the Mizuno JPX 921s. Now, just quickly, why am I looking at these today? Number one, obviously, to show you guys the review, of course, but the main reason I went for these is I'm currently playing with the Mizuno MP20 MMCs. Love them, but they are pretty, even though they're not technically blades, they are blade-like and more your elite players club. So I just wanted that something a bit more forgiving, especially in winter when I wasn't hitting the ball very well with my extremely dodgy swing. So I just wanted that little bit more forgiveness. I loved the MP20 MMCs and had some great time with them last summer, but I was just like, all right, the aim of this year is to really get my handicap down, and to do that, why not, obviously with lessons, of course, as always, but also why not use some clubs that are going to help me? So this is the reason why I picked up these, the JPX 921s, hot metal. Now, as always, let's have a closer look at the club. Then I'll go through some of the technology in here. We'll get down to the range, tell you some figures for them, and then we'll go through the ACS Golf Scale. And I'll tell you personally why I think these are good options for you guys, or maybe perhaps some other clubs that might do the same, but maybe for a little bit cheaper. So do remember to watch the end of the video, and do remember, if you do enjoy all these reviews, to subscribe to the channel. More subscribers I get, more equipment I'll be able to review for you guys, and you can be able to see my dodgy swing even more. Okay, now let's go and have a look at this club. So there you go, closer look at the iron. Now for me personally, I think it's a gorgeous looking iron. I really do. Now obviously it is a game improvement iron, so it's a lot thicker and chunkier than the previous sort of blade like MP20 MMCs I was using. Now it took me a while, I have to admit, to get used to that bigger size, but you know, the top line isn't, this is the 6 iron in my hand by the way, isn't actually that offensive. There you'd see maybe a little bit of offset with the 6 and the 5, but again, not that much. So even though they are getting obviously a wider sole there as well, even though they are game improvement, they're not too offensive. Now, if you're thinking of what these would be in the bracket of what sort of their competitors, if we go for like this year, say last year, because this was still technically currently the model for last year's 2022, you're looking at the Ping G45s, TaylorMade Stealth, sort of along that line, the Callaway Rogue ST is well ranged. Now, so that's what the game improvement line is, with the idea to give you forgiveness, but sleeker looks and also distance. Now, going into basically the JPX 921 range, there was 4 different clubs. Now these were released in 2021 and ran into 2022. As all sort of models with Mizuno's, when it comes down to irons, they always run 2 years. So you have the JPX line 1 year, and then next year you'll have the new MP, so basically Mizuno Pro line. So the new clubs out this year are the JPX 923s that have just come out this year. So this is technically last year's model 2022. Now, the 4 models, as mentioned, are the JPX 921 Tour version. Now, that was the unforgiving, pretty much blade-like iron. A lot of tour players actually sort of gravitate to that when they're a Mizuno player. They'll go for more the JPX Tours rather than maybe the MP20s, or, you know, the Mizuno Pros 221s, for example, so the proper blade. So they tend to go for the Tour, just for a little bit more forgiveness, but still obviously great workability, feeling, etc. Then you have the JPX 921 Forged, which is very similar to this, but obviously just a smaller profile and obviously forged, a forged iron. If you're comparing that with Mizuno's, you know, maybe when that was out, you'd have the Mizuno Pro 223, which is sort of the current model, and maybe the 225. It's sort of like around there in the middle of that, where it comes down to distance, forgiveness, etc. So a bit of a middle iron there. And then you obviously had this. You had the Hot Metal, and then you had the Hot Metal Pro, where the Pro is just a little bit more compact iron, where it still offered a great amount of forgiveness, great distance, but a little bit more compact for the player who likes even smaller. Looks like to look at something smaller behind the ball, not necessarily something as big as this. But then again, like I said, this isn't huge, so fair enough to them. But went down the Hot Metal route because it's what I could get, at the time, and what I found a good deal. So there you go. But one thing I will say about this, the Hot Metal, they are not forged. So going into technology, this is basically chromely. So that's how they produce the irons. And if you look on their website, the introduction of chromely was a breakthrough Mizuno needed to take a step up in ball speed. So basically, they're using this idea of chromely because, number one, they can produce it quicker, and also the idea that they can increase the ball speed. Because, when you're looking at more irons and sort of elite cavity backs, elite player irons, etc., you're not necessarily looking for ball speed and distance, and there you're looking for workability. The idea of people who sort of use those irons are guys who are still swinging the club at a relatively good enough pace that they don't need the help with the ball speed. They don't need the help with getting it further, and that's the whole point where game improvement irons have come in. Going further into the technology, so we have a stability frame which is around the whole club. You'll see, which is extreme perimeter weighting with toe bias for stability from off-centered strike. So you can see here, right down the toe, there you go. They put a lot of weight here with the idea to aid forgiveness and also increase ball speed. So wherever you hit it on the face, the idea that you won't be punished that much. Same again, I've got the 9-iron, there you go, 9-iron there. You can still see there, you've still got the weight at the toe there. So there you go. But then you go and look, as you don't need as much forgiveness as the 9-iron, the sole actually gets that little bit smaller, not as chunky. So there you go. They do blend down very nicely all the way down, to be fair. Decreasing the size where you don't need as much forgiveness and you need more of that feel, which is great. To be honest, it's one thing that Mizuno have done really well. They've also got a seamless cup face, so around here. So basically the face, so re-engineered Quartec face is now 0.2 millimeters thinner across the center point, with the idea, obviously, you hit it off the center point because it's a little bit thinner, you're going to get more flex and therefore more ball speed and therefore more distance. So there you go. And then you've got a variable sole. So a new variable thickness sole design resulting in greater face flex and ball speed. So straight off the bat, with all the technology here, it's all about ball speed, and this is what they're going for, the idea of hot metal. It's going to be hot off the face. It's really going to be explosive, and that's exactly with all the technology here, and that's what they've gone for. Now, one other thing I will mention about these, and it's something we need to think about when it comes down to, if I can just find it, when you come down to basically any sort of game improvement iron where the distance is increased, is the way they sort of do it is to decrease the loft to get better ball speed, but obviously then to move weight around, put weight at the bottom of the club, etc. Get that chunky sole, get that cavity back there, like here, with the idea that even though the loft is lower, and you get higher ball speed, but because of the weight at the bottom of the sole, it will still help launch the ball up in the air. So you'll still get the same relatively ball flight you would from, say, a weaker lofted club, but with the idea, because you got less loft, the ball speed will be greater and you'll get more distance. So it's one thing to think of when you're going for game improvement irons is your gapping. So for example here, the 6-iron here is 25. If we go through the whole range, pitch and wedge is 44. Normally a pitch and wedge normally is about 46. 9, 39 degrees. 8 is 34 degrees, which a lot of the time can be a traditional 7-iron, to be fair. So there you go, straight off the bat. 7 is 29 degrees. 6 is 25. 5 is 22. So my 5-iron actually in the bag at the moment. Oh, to just say, and 4 is 19 degrees. 19 degrees, that's pretty much, it's a 3 hybrid. It's a 3-iron, really. But going back to the 5, 22 degrees. My current 4-iron in the bag, if by just taking out for you guys is this. So I've done a review on it. Do check it out. The pin crossover. I always forget the model. 410. G410. Yeah, so that's my current 4-iron. My current 4-iron is 23 degrees. And the 5-iron that I have in the bag is 22. Now, they actually go the same distance. So they're both around the 200 mark. But this is a great point when it comes down to gapping. And this is what you need to think about if you're looking at game improvement irons, because that's the same distance. But because of the way the ball flight is, the 5 for me, especially someone who hits down on the ball, comes out a lot lower and it's going to roll a lot more. Well, this basically comes up and launches the higher, so I get a lot more carry with it. So even though they're the same distance, because of the different ball flight, I can still have my 4-iron in the bag and I still make use of it. You know, so because it's a longer club, I'll use it off the tees to get that more height, to get the carry. But yeah, when I'm on the fairway and I'm still looking for distance, there's nothing in front of me, then I might use the 5-iron because it's shorter and I control it a bit better. So there you go. So it's definitely something to think about when looking at these type of irons, is to look at the lofts and really try and plan your bag out, because, you know, especially with the pitching wedge being 44, you might need to bring in, you know, your gap wedge might be 52. You might have to change it to a 50 or a 48. So do think about lofts, etc., when you're looking at game improvement irons and distances, because it can sort of definitely squash the sort of distances at the top end of the bag if you've got a 5-iron that goes out like absolute rocket, which these do. But anyway, talking of that, let's get down to Sandown. Now, obviously, I've had these in the bag for ages, but we'll specifically be looking at the pitching wedge, the 8-iron and the 6 today, and I'll give you the figures for them. Okay, so let's go to Sandown now and let's check that out.
So here I am down at Sandown. Now I picked the pitching wedge, the 8-iron and the 6-irons to show you guys footage and the figures. So let's go straight into the pitching wedge. So carry on average 126 yards, total distance 129 yards, ball speed at 96 miles per hour, launch angle 28, height 82. With the 8-iron, it was 146 total yards on average carried. Total yards, distance 153 yards, ball speed 109, launch angle 20, height 76. And with the 6-iron, total flat carry was 163 yards on average, total distance 175 yards, 119 ball speed, launch angle 15 degrees, and height 68 feet. So really those figures are pretty much what I'd really want from a game improvement iron. 7-iron, normally I'd want around 160. I didn't test that today for you guys, but that's what I'm getting, and a little bit more, to be fair. So around the 8-iron, around that 150 mark's good. The only issue I will say is with the 5-iron. I do find the 5-iron can come out really hot, low and long. So the carry might not be as much, but the distance, every now and again, I can push up 200, which not necessarily what I need. You know, really I'd want my 5-iron to be between that 180, 190 mark. So that is the issue, I think, with game improvement irons, because obviously they do go that bit further, and especially if you hit it out the middle, they can really, really fly.
So there you go there, the distances for the JPX 91 hot metal. So really quite happy with it, to be fair. You know, for me, pitching wedge 130 on average, roughly nearly there, perfect. Total yards, 8-iron around the 150 mark. I know it was actually on the day, it was about 153 on total distance average, was great. And then the 6-iron 175, normally about 170 is what I'd hope for. So again, it's sort of spot on. You know, I could possibly push my MP 20 MMCs when I was connecting with them really well, you know, and it was summer, I'd be sort of taking those distances. So distances absolutely spot on. For me, I sort of, you know, like my 7-iron to be around that 160 mark. Even though I didn't test the 7-iron for this video, that's roughly what it is. So very happy with them. They do exactly what I want them to do. But obviously, because of the way they are, etc., you know, we'll have to discuss that further. And that's exactly what we'll do right now, because we're going to be talking about the ACS Golf Scale. So remember, we got 5 categories: distance, feel, looks, price, forgiveness. 1 out of 5, 5 being the best, 1 being shocking, burn it, bin it, throw it away, never use it again. So let's get straight into it. And as we're discussing distance, let's talk about distance. So for me, distance is a very solid, well, very good 4 out of 5. Now, these are game improvement irons, so they are long. But obviously, I definitely think there's probably some longer ones out there. If you're going ultra forgiving, like your great big Berthas, for example, they, put them in the same hand with stiff, they're going to go even further. But these are exactly what they say. So 4 out of 5, really good distance. If you're struggling for distance, and you need that bit more forgiveness, great option, really good. 4 out of 5. I will say though, is if you hit down on the ball like I do, even though they do help to pop the ball up in the air, because of that low spin and the higher ball speed and the lower lofts, you can struggle to get the ball stopping. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing because it gets you even more distance. But for example, I was shooting a par 5 last weekend down at Sutton Green, a par 3, sorry, down at Sutton Green with my 5 iron. Because the 4 iron actually wasn't working at the time. So I went for the 5 and I actually hit it in the front of the green. Not a bad shot, hit it in front of the green. And even though the green was 2-layered and a big old slope, it ran all the way up over the green to the back. So I went up the hill and the back. So that is something to be aware of when you're looking at these clubs at game improvement. But you can learn that and you can play to that. So it's not the end of the world. So distance, 4 out of 5, very happy with that. Now, let's get into forgiveness. 4 out of 5, exactly what they do on the tin. They are very forgiving. They're great irons, but obviously do be aware that they're not the most forgiving. Again, you can get these hybrid irons now, which are even more forgiving, like the Cleveland Launcher XL. No. Wilson Staff launch pads. There you go. The hybrid irons. But so that's why it's not 5 out of 5 or 4.5 out of 5, but a very solid 4 out of 5. Personally, if you're looking at these irons, they definitely have the amount of forgiveness that you need. So very good. Happy with that. 4 out of 5. Now, looks, as someone who is really, I'm not going to lie, loves a blade, loves the look of a blade, that smaller club head, it's a 3.5 out of 5 for me. Don't get me wrong, these are beautiful irons, but even though I mentioned before, they're not too chunky, they're a little bit chunky for me. So 3.5 out of 5 there. Now, let's get on to the feel. So for me, these, for not being forged, personally, one of the best feeling irons you can get that are not forged. So even though they're only scoring 3.5 out of 5, that for a non-forged iron is very, very good. I mean, they just felt great. They still feel really soft out the middle. I can tell where I've hit them. If I've hit them on the, on the toe, if I've hit it off the bottom of the club, it still hurts the hand. So there is still feedback there. I love the sound of them as well, the noise they make. Also, they do have some playability, and even though they are, they game improvement, there is still that playability. You can draw it and you can slice it as well. So, feel wise, 3.5 out of 5, very good. And the only reason they're not forged because they're not forged. That's solely the reason. So, there you go. Very nice feeling clubs. Now, on to the main bit, the price, because when it comes down to it, price is important. So for me, I put the price as 2.5 out of 5. Now, there is a reason for that. And the main reason for that is basically 2.5 out of 5 for me is everything is bang on what it should cost. So it's not a great deal. You're not getting an absolute steal, but you're not basically getting someone's not taking the piss out of you, basically mugging you off and taking all your money. 2.5, they are valued correctly, really, on the second-hand market. So, if you look on eBay, these, I think when they first came out, around that £750 mark. Over here in the UK, maybe £800. So on eBay, from sort of 5 to pitch and wedge, you're sort of looking for at the ones that recently sold around that sort of £450 mark. So about $562. If you go onto Golf Bidder website, there's one on there at the moment of these, which is 5 to sand wedge, which is £630, which is just under $800. So I think if you're going through those secondhand stores like Golf Bidder, like Replay Golf, etc., then they are quite expensive, because Mizuno do hold their value, but you are getting a great iron, something that you'll love, and you can potentially have in the bag for years to come. So I think the value is, like I've said, very fair. But if that's too punchy for you, then there are other options. JPX and Mizuno have been doing the hot metal for a couple of years now. So you've got the 919, so 919 hot metal from 2019. You have the 900 hot metal, which is the version before that. And you're looking for sort of forward pitching wedge there. You're more around sort of that 350 mark, £300 mark. For them, which is around $375 up to sort of $450. So if you want to save yourself a little bit of money, you can go for the version before this. I mean, there's not really much you can do to change it. I know they've changed the face by 0.2 millimeters, etc. But the amount of technology in here is pretty jam-packed as it is. So I think if you picked up the JPX 919s and compared them to these, there's not going to be a huge amount of difference. So, there is that option there. If you want to play JPX hot metals, to go out and get the previous model. So definitely something to think about. And also do keep an eye on eBay, because there is always, the chances of getting a steal. So for me, for example, I actually only paid £380 for this. So 5 to pitching wedge, which was $475. But the shafts were not, apart from the 7, are not in a great state. They've got some pitting on them. And I complained to the guy, and I actually managed to get the price down to £205. So I only paid £205 for 5 pitching wedges. Don't get me wrong, I'm probably going to have to replace some of the shafts soon. But now that, that's only $255. So that's an absolute steal. So do keep an eye out. But do remember, when buying secondhand clubs, to check for those sort of, sharp hitting, check to make sure the grips are good. Because one thing you do, even if the head's great, you've got to replace the shafts, you've got to replace the grips, the price of it's all going to go up. And do be careful when buying Mizunos. There is always the fact they are fake ones out there. So I don't know if there's JPX 921 hot metals, but I've definitely seen Mizuno MP20 HMBs out there, fake. And unfortunately, I saw some people pick that up on eBay the other day for quite a price. So do keep an eye out for that. So there you go. Great club. Been in my bag now for a couple of months, really helping me, get good results, even if I'm not striking the ball well. So really happy with them, and I think they're really great clubs. So there you go. Now, if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe. Obviously, give it a like, and mention down below if you play Mizunos yourself, and if so, which clubs you play. And I'll catch you guys next week.